Jai Shri Ram. As I said in my last video, I recently came back from a trip to LA and San Diego, California, and I talked about a place that I went to in LA. So today I thought I'd talk about the place that I went to in San Diego that's relevant to the topics that I talk about here, and that was called the India House. So in San Diego, there's this place called Balboa Park that has many different museums and other kinds of destinations that tourists would want to visit, and it's very walkable, and it's there's all this greenery and all this kind of stuff. It's a very nice place to go, and I actually spent 2 whole days just visiting different places there. And in that park, there is a place called India House, and there are also maybe 20, 25 other houses that are named after countries. And what these houses are they're very, very small buildings. And you basically put whoever is in charge of this organization for a particular country, they will put like knickknacks and clothing items and decorations of wall on the wall and things of this nature that are connected to a particular country, so that people can come there and kind of get a superficial taste of what a specific country is. And when I went to all of these. There were maybe 25 or so. And some of them were better kept than others, because it's just about how much money does this organization have, how much time and effort are the people that are behind it willing to put in the effort to actually put things together. And some of them even kind of created exhibits where they would write some information about history or the background of some photograph that they're showing and things of this nature. And, when I saw the Indian one, it was bigger than than most of the other ones, which I think is natural because obviously India is a huge country. But the kind of things that were displayed there were basically what you would imagine from how I just explained this. So there were some Hindu elements, there was some image of some Sikh person or something related to Sikhism, there were some Mughal elements, there were some British elements, and of course there was this kind of fetishized, exotic kind of everything's colorful, everything's vibrant, the way that Westerners look at India and they see brightly colored saris and they see gulal pichkari on Holi and things of this nature, and it becomes very kind of sensory overload and exotic for them. So these are basically the kinds of things that I saw there. And I think that this is basically a metaphor for what India is, which is to say that the idea that India is a civilizational state that actually stands for something that goes beyond, Gandhi and the Republic of India and the freedom struggle and things like that. It's difficult for me to see how that idea has been inculcated in the minds of people. I think people who are politically right-leaning in India do believe that, but the vast majority of people in India, just like in any society, are not very politically interested or politically aware. They mostly just look at in a third world country, they just look at politics as a mode of, I want more development. I want to complain about the problems that society has because it's not a first world country yet. But as far as a civilizational narrative, I don't really see in any kind of even political discourse outside of the right wing where this kind of a conversation is happening. And even within the right wing, it feels like it's not really people who are connected to politics that are talking about it. It's the people who follow politics but are not actually, elected people or working in a government or anything like that. They're the ones that are creating this discourse that India is a civilizational state. These are the things that we believe in. These are our values, so on and so forth. And I think that, periodically with questions of patriotism, of course, Independence Day just happened like 3 weeks ago or something like that. You always see this kind of an idea that, we need to portray ourselves as being very patriotic, that Gandhi and these other people that were around during the freedom struggle, they're our biggest heroes, and our sense of self is tied in with all of this post Mughal, post British independence era kind of thought. And I think, you're going to see Gandhi as the father of your nation if you believe your nation began in 1947. You're going to see Nehru as the uncle of your nation if you believe your nation existed only since 1947. If you see your sense of self going back till ancient times, and you see the modern day India only as the modern political manifestation of the civilization that has been around for several thousand years, then your sense of self is not going to be based on that. And your sense of what symbols really mean something to you and that you care about is not going to be based on that either. And I think where I see the discourse kind of not really understanding this or going off the rails is that a lot of right-leaning Hindus understand that a certain section of the population, or two different sections of the population, one, Muslims, two, woke people, they're not comfortable with the Tiranga. They don't want to fly the Tiranga. They have generally negative attitudes towards India in general, and they don't like the flag, right? They don't like things that are associated with the flag, things that are associated with patriotism. And so right-leaning people want to kind of shove this thing into the faces of these people and try to impose this upon them. Whereas I think an idea that makes a whole lot more sense is to understand, many of the people who happen to be citizens of the Republic of India don't want to identify with Indian civilization and uphold a value system which is opposed to Indian civilization. And we need to understand that. We're far too interested in winning tiny symbolic victories by, these people that, we're going to force Kashmiri Muslims to chant Bharat Mata Ki Jai or something. It doesn't matter if somebody chants something. It doesn't matter if someone flies a flag. Their value system and ideology and identity is still opposed to that, whether you force them to do some symbolic action or not. And I think that's why I see that India House thing as basically a metaphor for this, where the idea that India is just a bunch of like different religions, different languages, diversity, the legacy of Mughal rule and the legacy of British rule, and Gandhi was like the most important figure in modern Indian history. Even though we as right-leaning people disagree with all of that, that is what the average Indian person believes. And I think to a large degree, because of the way that the BJP has become such a wildly popular party today, I wouldn't be surprised if the average BJP voter today even believed that, because the BJP has become, in my opinion, the BJP has become kind of less ideological over time in order to gain broader and broader support, which it now has. I mean, you see that the so-called Brahmin Baniya party has an enormous number of OBCs and SCs supporting it, and even Muslims supporting it. Shia Muslims have been supporting it for some time, apparently, but you now see even broader groups of Muslims starting to vote for them as well. And I think right-leaning people need to understand how things change. If someone was pro-BJP in 1990, that actually meant something. If someone is pro-BJP now, that really doesn't mean anything at all. If someone lifts a flag if someone lifts the Bhagwa Jhand, that means something. If someone lifts the Tiranga, that doesn't really mean anything, because that's not only was the Tiranga co-opted, the Tiranga even began as a symbol that is not really tied into Indian culture. From what I understand in my reading of Hindutva, figures like Savarkar, Golwalkar, Hedgewar, and so on, they advocated the usage of the Bhagwa flag, the swallowtail-shaped flag used by the Maratha Empire that was only Bhagwa in color. They advocated the usage of that as their symbol. I'm not really sure if they thought it should become the national flag, but this is the flag that was always associated with them. And they and other people referred to the Tiranga as the Congress Party flag. So, and by Tiranga, I mean even this older version that had the charka on it, and this even older version that had a white, red, green stripes with charka instead of the saffron, white, and green. And I think this is the kind of division in symbolism that we need to draw, because we shouldn't have this idea as right-leaning people that, oh, India is divided into patriots and people who are anti-patriotic. Like, there's Desh Bhakts and Desh Drohi people. We shouldn't see it like that. We should see there's Desh Drohi people, then there's people who are Desh Bhakts towards this modern Gandhi Congress 1947 Mughal British khichdi of things. And then there are people who are civilizational Bhakts, right? The kind of people that want to post maps of Akhand Bharat and talk about the civilizational narrative of India. That's actually a totally different kind of a human being from the kind of person that wants to say Tiranga is our flag and treat that as if it's some kind of devata. And the sooner we realize this as right-leaning people, the better, because that is not what we stand for. That's not our value system, to just be patriots towards this modern creation. That modern creation is just a that modern creation of India is not very different from how the rest of the world, when it became decolonized, or when the European powers granted different parts of the world self-rule, it's not really any different from that. Whereas Indian civilization, that narrative is unique and different and all of that. And, to close, the reason that I bring this up, the reason that I was thinking about that when I was looking at India House is we have to get away from this idea that a bunch of symbolic elements of superficial culture make us who we are. And since 1947, Gandhi and the Tiranga and the national anthem and things like that have been added into this, weird set of different things that people want to create this fake sense of nationalism and patriotism towards. So that's all I've got for you guys today. Please like, share, and subscribe. Jai Shri Ram.